Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. Actually, should be the Tiger Supervises, since, that's the nomenclature I'm going with. These are where I read a chapter from one of my books and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch. And if you want to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we're doing chapter 9 of Breaking Step. What? The sorcerer looked at them as if only now realizing he wasn't alone. I'm not. His protest was cut short by Jackal. You know the game, don't you? King Killer is what Tibs said you called it. You call it? Don looked at Tibs, and there was a flash of anger, as if he'd shared some secret when mentioning the game. Then it was gone, and he looked away. I shouldn't. I'm not in charge. I'm in charge, Jekyll stated. You've pulled your weight in the fights, and now I want you. And now I want you to do the same here, he motioned to the room. How do we do this? Don hesitated, then stepped to the door. The first thing we need to do is determine which piece each of us represents. I'm the Lord, Jekyll stated. What? Don replied in dismay. No! Let me guess. Jekyll said, geez. Jekyll said derisively, you're the Lord. Of course not. The sorcerer replied, something like his confidence was returning. Why would you want to have a king on the board? Because, the fighter said, without a lord, we lose the game. Only if this is a standard match. Don motioned to the room. We lose this game if we die. Have you done this before? How the fuck did you survive it? They cheated. Stowe said. More like exploited how I think. Wait, what? Why do you not like this? More like exploited how I think, Genny said. Same thing. Jekyll and Kumdar exchanged a look. We got lucky, the fighter admitted. Luck's not a thing. Tibs and Don said at the same time. Tibs did so reflexively, while Don sounded annoyed at having to point it out. They stared at one another in surprise, then the sorcerer shrunk in slightly. Don. Jekyll pointed to the room when the sorcerer remained silent. He studied the golem people in the room. Jekyll and Tibs are infantry. Kumdar, you're the queen, and Mazzano, you're an archer, and I'm a sorcerer. A few second looking the placement over, and he pointed to the position each was to occupy. Now what? Mez asked once they were all in place. Is Bo at the ready? We wait for the dungeon to make its move, Don replied. You think I can wait them out and get them to move first? Kenny asked, and Tibbs glared at the ceiling. What's your thought on dungeons, Don? Mez asked. How about you try that with the next team? Stowe replied. I don't have any. Ganny's archer moved as Stowe snorted. Okay. What did you do to him? He has more idea about what I am and how I think than anyone, more than even that noble sorcerer who claimed to have read an entire library explaining everything there is to know about us. Jackal, one forward. Don, you're a sorcerer, Mez insisted. You have to have read something on dungeons. Karina had... The silence that fell was complete for a few seconds. Sorry, Tibbs. Tibbs nodded. Don sighed. According to treaties I got my hands on, dungeons evolved as a way to keep the flood of monsters that came from the world rift under control. Back in the days of the dawn. Kenny moved one of her infantry forward. It's why nearly every dungeon has the same set of base templates, like those gnolls. They come from those original dungeons, so they know what they knew, and as they grow, they can make more and more powerful types of creatures. Kumdar, a diagonal on your right, 3 squares. Would the days of dawn refer to the time purity created the world? Kumdar asked once he reached its destination. Purity didn't create, the sorcerer stared at the click. I didn't think you I think you were a believer of that doctrine. I make no I make no claims to believe, Commodore replied, but I have heard of how, before there was more than the elements, purity, that should be capitalized, formed the world, and how the other elements took advantage to place what they wanted with within within it, ruining ruining the perfection purity created. I have encountered other stories in my travels, so understand how each kingdom believes the world came to be in a way that advantaged them. But this one as okay, that's a verb. This one has always felt more credible. Dawn snorted. The elements came after the world, not before. How can that be known? The cleric asked. Something must have created the world, and so the elements must have been there before it. No. Obviously, no one knows how the world came to be. We just have theories to support each belief and people arguing over who's right. But no one has been able to establish that the elements were there before. By your own words, the cleric said smugly, the elements might have come before the world. Therefore, purity might. Fine, Don snapped. Yes, maybe that's what happened. We don't know. So anything's possible. You need to believe purity created everything to keep going? Good for you. It doesn't help me. He ran over a hand over his face. Don, Jekyll motioned around them. What's the next move? Genian moved her sorcerer to the center of the floor while Dawn had been talking. It could move in any direction now, but none that endangered them. Okay. Tibs, you'll be moving next, but after that, the sorcerer will move in position to threaten Jackal or Mez, so be ready. Once they acknowledged him, Don pointed to the opposing infantry. Tibs, take it. Tibs formed ice swords as he stepped to the fire infantry, and it responded with blades of fire. He tested its skill, then went on the offensive, dodging as he swung. Heat made it through his armor as he sliced his opponent's side, and Tibbs gritted his teeth at the pain. He kicked it away, then launched. Lunged. Lunged with a scream. He stabbed both swords in its chest, and the fire blades went went out. Wow. How did I not catch that when I wrote this? Out a second before it crumbled away. Tibbs looked at the cut as he straightened. Instead of the gaping hole in his armor it had felt like, the line was thin and the cut already seared closed. Mez, Jekyll called, and by the time Tibbs looked up, the archer was landing away from the sorcerer's beam of light, firing arrows after arrows as he rolled to a knee, then stood. Tibbs stepped forward to help, but couldn't move past the edge of the square he stood in. The arrows splashed against a faint curved surface of light before the sorcerer. Can you see the shield? Tibbs asked. No. Mez sidestepped another. Can that be one word? Sidestepped another beam, but I'm getting a sense for it from the fire curving around. He snatched an arrow from the quiver at his hip and fired it between two fire ones. But the shield also deflected it. So much for that idea. He angled the next arrow lower, and the shield moved to intercept it. Tibbs pushed to the miasma and reached for the essence that made the shield, but it slipped from his mental grip. Okay, Kenny said. This is odd. Tibbs focus. Precision over brute force. If he couldn't rip it apart, something else might work. What is? Stowe asked as Mez fired another fire arrow. Tibbs nudged the shield aside, and some of the fire burned the sorcerer. Not odd, she said, annoyed. Just Tibbs finding a way to help. The shield moved back into place. Go Tibbs, Stowe said. Really? The composition of the essence changed. Forms manifested between lines, and Tibbs had a rougher time maintaining his hold. I mean, bad, Tibs? No helping your teammate? Still didn't sound convinced. Didn't sound convincing. Where's my cursor? When the sorcerer staggered, a wooden shaft piercing his calf. It caught both Tibs and Ganny by surprise. Men's bounced another arrow off the floor and under the shield's edge, piercing the other calf. Close your eyes, Miss called as the sorcerer flayed and fell to the side. Essence accumulated at the tip of the arrow in the archer's bow. The explosion had Tibs blinking spots away, but the pieces falling throughout the rooms made it worthwhile. Forgot he could do that, Ganny mused. Tibs can manipulate essence away from him, Stowe replied. I meant Maz, but yes, I also didn't take that into account. I thought the interference I placed on this floor would keep him from doing it. I wish he could tell me how it affected him, but with Dawn here, Tibs considered what he'd done. The resistance hadn't felt different from the previous run. It might have required more effort to sense through it when he'd entered, but he had gotten used to it quickly enough. He didn't remember where he'd stopped thinking about it. When he'd stopped thinking about it. Jackal, diagonal on your left, Dunn instructor, and get ready. That archer might go for you if the dungeon's confident in its king's position. The archer didn't attack, and the following moves centered on Dawn maneuvering Ganny's archers until the sorcerer was able to destroy one of them, leaving only the other one and the Lord. 3 moves later, Kumdar fought the Lord, and the fight ended with the cleric's staff through its crumbling chest. The wall opened to the loot room, and Dawn strode through, only to stop a few steps in. Tibs followed him into the smaller room, and instead of 5 pedestals from their previous run, from their previous run, it only contained a chest. Check it for trap, Dawn instructed. Dawn, Jekyll said, and as Tibs headed for the chest, don't start giving orders. The sorcerer said, tone harsh, as he turned to face the other, then faltered. We can't trust that the chest is safe. It's good advice, Miss said in a gentler tone, Tibs. Then Tibs thought Dawn deserved, but but we know our jobs. Yeah, Jekyll added, we don't have to order people about in this team. Unless it is to keep our leader from doing something idiotic, Kumdar said. There's no need to order me about that even. There's no need to order me even then. Oh, order me about. That's okay. Jackal is playing this. Order people about. So there's no need to order me about even then. No, Miss said. We tried suggesting you stop trying to get yourself killed. It only started working when Tibs threatened to kick you in the shin. Higher, Kumdar corrected. And at the time, stone was not something he could turn them into. The only person who gets away with suggesting you do something, the archer continued, and you listen, is Krosef, whose suggestion come with far more weight than our orders, the cleric added. Tim glanced over his shoulder. Dawn looked at the others, baffled. How about we get on with this instead of bashing the team leader? Jekyll asked in exasperation. I do not believe we have much else to do until Tibs has confirmed the chest is safe to open. Jekyll gave Dawn his, can you believe that I'm being treated this way look? Then scowled. Fine. Anyone think it's odd? It's odd. The dungeon's just giving us a chest again instead of a choice of items? Tibs glanced at the ceiling, then focused on the chest again. Oh, right, Stowe said. You only had 1 run after you asked me to help arm the runners. The way I did it at first was to let them take all 5 instead of having to choose one. But they found it odd. You often mention how doing anything that gets the guild to ask questions is a bad idea. So I went back to chest. I don't know if I'll go back to the pedestal. Tibs check didn't find any traps, so he opened the chest and stepped away. It's safe. Jekyll and Cumdar joined Tibs, and the fighter pulled items out. Tibs watched Maz and Dawn on the other side of the door, speaking in quiet voices. He considered shaping the air to hear what they said, but he'd have to push through the miasma, and Genny would use that to find out how to change things to make it even harder. And in the end, what could the sorcerer say that was going to be of use to Tibs? Tibs? Jekyll called in a low voice, and indicated the items laid out before the chest. He mouthed, "Enchanted?" Of course, Mez wasn't over there having an important conversation with Dawn. It was just to keep him from noticing this. Tibbs sensed the item, then used his foot to push the leather chest armor the, the chest armor and shield to one side and the knife and amulet to the other. He didn't bother with the 3 potions. They were always magic. Jekyll glanced to the archer and sorcerer before slipping the knife into his pouch. Cumdar turned, and Tibbs helped put the armor in his pack and attached a shield to it. Then they left the room. "Just remember," Mez was saying as they reached them, "that you are a member of the team." The sorcerer stepped away, looking angry, but then it cracked with indecision. And this concludes Chapter 9 of Breaking Step. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter is going to be, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read the story, it is available for free on Royal Road. And if you want to read ahead of there, as well as support me, you can get about 20 chapters ahead on my Patreon. And if you're looking to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. on Twitch. Links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.